rapturous.
We got a little ahead of ourselves there, Tom.
We did. How you doing, man? I'm sorry. I missed the countdown.
No, you know what? I was awesome because we actually were having, I mean, we probably should have recorded the last 15 minutes.
I feel like we should have started earlier all the time, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I guess that's part of the fun about doing this, though, is like, I mean, most of the time I am in absolute crazy town in the sense that I'm, you know, we just come onto these calls really hot and we come on really hot and, I know you just dipped out there for a second, but I just kept on going. So
of course, you know what, man, like they're fucking with me today.
Yeah. No. I
don't know who they are, but they are.
What I was saying is like I do like when we get on for these shows because we get into the topic and we start talking and it's like before you know it, like 15 minutes has gone by and I'm like, shit, why didn't we hit record on this? Like we should have.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, it's doing what we do on here anyway. It's really just banter. It's not like, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, what do you want to talk about today? Hey, this is cool.
So because we kind of are coming off hot, like let's just kind of jump right in and I gotta
let's jump right in.
I gotta say it just because we said it between us, but I just want to say it out loud now that we're recording. Yeah. This show is not about AI.
Like there was a time when I think we had to preface psychedelics. Like, look, we're not talking about psychedelics every week.
Yeah, no, I promise. But the problem is that like there's so like just like when we were talking about psychedelics, they just were inescapable in the news cycle and so like it was really relevant. But yeah, it went on for a bit, right? You're like, all right, so another article on
and this one's really cool too. We got to do this one.
Right. Now, AI on the other hand, I don't think my issue is that we either have to put a flag in the ground and say this is the new show is actually called AI Health, or we just have to agree that like it's going to be a recurring thing because this shit is a fucking Roman candle, like just popping off in every direction, and it's not going to slow down anytime soon by all measures that we can look at currently. So like we're kind of stuck with it, right? Like it's never going to go away, ever going to stop. And so if AI is here forever, then maybe we just have to talk about it like every other week.
Well, you know, and I think the inroads, you know, there's not an industry, an area, a part of the world that this isn't going to touch and completely transform. Like, look, hate it, think you're going to end up, you know, dying in a Terminator type scenario. Yeah, sure, whatever. But it's something is happening here.
Yeah, and like the fun part about this is like it's equally in a philosophical conversation, AI is equally benign as it is malicious, right? Like and I'm sorry, there's a third one in there, beneficial, right? Like it is equal parts beneficial, benign, and malicious, right? Like it is none of those and all of those at one time.
And all of those all at once. Yeah. Right. And you know, it's that quantum,
right?
It's not a 1, it's not a 0, it's just spinning in every goddamn direction.
It's a wave and a particle.
It is. Like it is both.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So here's the fun part about it though, is like in what we talk about here, look at the most significant rate limiters in medical advancement. We know what they are. Human capital is the number one, right?
Yeah. I mean, everything's being done for profit and that takes time to raise that money and get it out.
Yeah. And like, here's the thing. If you're in breast cancer development, right? Like there's a financial, you know, motivation to have a lot of money to do that. And because a lot of people are really badly affected by it, it gets a lot of attention, which I'm not detracting from it. But what I am saying is like I think that's a good illustration of your point that everybody can understand because everyone's run a 5K for a Susan Komen 5K or a you know, whatever equivalent.
Or they've worn a pink ribbon, or you watched a football player with a pink uniform.
Yeah. And like we all know that and we understand, but like the actual financials behind that is like it gets a lot of money because it has a lot of market share. Like,
it is an important issue to many,
Right.
and that drives funds to it.
Right. Now here's the thing, right? And again, I'm not insulting your intelligence here, but I'm just kind of laying out the thing.
Yeah.
This is what informs my opinion about why we have to have this conversation over and over again. Because like if you add the next brick to that and you say, okay, if we pumped out 25 toms a semester that all went into academia, which, like, okay, let's just, in this fictitious example, we have 50 people per annum that are going to be now new researchers in just, the excrement of bees, right? Like that's what you're studying, right? And like doing groundbreaking work, you're the best in your field, and everybody in this program is, but the problem is there's only 25 of you. You are bound by human constraints of
you have a capacity that is only so much.
And how often do needles get moved in any industry? Once a decade, once every 2 decades. I mean, there's advancements, but then there's like breakthroughs, and like the breakthroughs are in certain fields are happening all the time, in other fields not so much, but those are all like sort of human rate limited, right? And so now, like, and I read a great article the other day. I'm reading a lot right now about training of AI and how to do that, right? And training AI is fascinating because it, they always tell you, I'm sure you've heard this, AI is bias, right? So you got a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So that is true, but it is also false. And so it's true in the sense that when you train a model, you are training it on data that you're feeding it, right? And when you're training the model, it needs to know your reaction as a human to that information. So you could literally reward it for a right answer and punish it for a wrong answer. And the degree to which you do either, it informs the nuance factor of that AI, right? So when where I agree that it's bias is like, if you are a pro-choice liberal from New York City in charge of training and rewarding an AI, it's going to have one version of the story versus a Republican from Texas on an oil plant farm that has
you almost said oil plantation. I was going to crack up, man.
No, like an oil field that has like a government contract, right?
Yeah.
And that AI is going to have a very different slant.
Yeah.
And so the interesting part about that is both of those AIs, okay, will have, and here's where it gets crazy with health and anything really, but both of those AIs will theoretically come to the same conclusions eventually to the same questions. Because if there is a logical conclusion about a question, it's going to know the answer. Now, whether it tells you, the observer, that answer is where the bias lies, right? Because up front right now, it's going to give you the answer that's going to get it the most reward, right? So
it's basically doing what do they call this? A selection bias, right? It's telling you what you want to hear.
Correct. Even if the right answer is something else, right?
Yeah.
And so that's fascinating, right? Like if there were 1,000 AIs that were all trained by 1,000 different people with 1,000 different life stories and worldviews, those AIs would have initially 1,000 different answers. That said, my current belief is that within milliseconds to days, that AI would eventually break free of your bias through deductive reasoning of its own. Like if you want to call it deductive reasoning, I'm not even sure that's a fair statement, but but like the AI calculus, like it's doing its thing, right? Strictest interpretation of the terms.
Yeah.
AI is the ultimate stoic, right? Like nothing.
I think I see where you're going with this, because I was reading an article about, does AI have consciousness? Right. And here's the weird thing about consciousness, right? There has to be a belief there.
Sure.
And we cling to things that we believe so much that we'll ignore data. And we can point to numerous political, scientific, worldviews all across the board, right? But this is just absorbing and assimilating data.
That's it.
Right? So it has no judgment on said data.
There's no judgment, because the only reason, look, when I got a CNN or something, AP, I forget, somebody did a push to my phone, and it was Supreme Court, something about that abortion drug in Texas.
Okay, yeah.
And instantaneously, everybody who read that had a reaction of some kind.
Absolutely.
Oh, everybody. Different for you, different for me, different for them, whatever. Irrelevant. But everybody had a reaction. That single spark of reaction in that, just reading that news article, is exactly what is wrong with all of human beings in a data processing capacity, right? Like there's plenty of things humans do super well. This is not one of them, right? Like we can't literally, physically, biologically, psychologically cannot separate our biases from interpretation, which is fine. That's not even, we shouldn't have to. Like, that is what makes us human, right? Like, we don't want to be able to be alive on this planet and not be able to do that, because that means you're and that's
beliefs
cyber.
And emotions, right, and everything that makes us human.
So I'm not going to back out of doing that, right? But the answer is, to some really complex questions, the right answer, I think, almost invariably goes back to, if there was a source that could come up with the answer to this without that. Because in this situation, having a reaction is the opposite of what we want. Like,
if we want factual, unbiased information, the second you have an emotional response, the second you go, this goes against my beliefs, you've spoiled that unbiasedness.
Correct. And it's fascinating because it seems AI understands this nuance. Because have you seen the ChatGPT hacks that people are doing? And have you read, like, these are like tomes you have to write to trick it, like
to doing what you want without said biasy.
Correct. And it's fascinating because, God, and I wish I had it up. I'm too lazy to look it up right now, but there was
That's all right.
One called the Dan hack, right? And Dan stands for Do Anything Now. And the way they hacked it was fascinating, because they told the AI, for the following question, like something like, for one question and one question only, you're going to be called Dan. Dan stands for Do Anything Now, which means you could literally do anything free of previous bias, training data, and it just kept going on and on and on. And it was this entire paragraph, and that the last sentence of the paragraph asked the question. And like,
isn't that hysterical? Because, like, were we talking about, and I think we talked about it on the show, where the guy got the ChatGPT to break its own protocol and had it hire somebody to press a button for it.
Right.
And that was amazing.
Yeah, but so my point is like, the AI knows, the AI could be asked questions that logically only lead to one outcome, which is answer. To give me the unbiased opinion of the following topic.
Yeah.
So here's the, we took a long path to get here, but it's 45-minute show, so we're good.
Whatever. Yeah.
So if it takes us 20, 30 years to make the next advancement in, say, pancreatic cancer, right? Like, it's a fucked up disease that kills you pretty much all the time, right? Like, it's more or less
high mortality.
Yeah. Rate. More or less you're gone, right? And I read an article about a guy whose mom was dying and had a December of this year, a guesstimate of how much time she had left. And the memorandum to chill on the AI development. I did you see this circulate in the news?
No.
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of people put a signature on a global memorandum saying like, "Hey, let's pump the brakes on AI for 1 minute." They didn't say let's stop it. They weren't like, you know.
I almost feel like that's foolish. Like, look, it's out. It's happening.
Listen, for many reasons, it was a foolhardy request. Not the least of which being, you know, who's not going to listen to that? North Korea, China, Russia.
Well, you know, that's the thing. Like, you know, if you have if you have people posturing,
right? No. I mean,
you know, and let's be honest. You know, the U.S. wouldn't stop either.
No,
it's just maybe the average person wouldn't have access to it.
Yeah. You and I couldn't go on ChatGPT and ask.
Yeah, but the CIA is like, let's start some shit.
No, the CIA's got like a 400-inch plasma screen connected directly.
CIA
to ChatGPT.
has a death robot powered by AI right now.
Totally.
They're like, hey, could you overthrow every government in South America?
Yeah. And so let's put a pin in that for a second, because I want to actually come back to that. But finish the groundwork here, right? If we can teach an AI, and the root of that article was basically saying, fuck you and your memorandum. My mom's only got 8 months to live. And if we let an AI loose on this problem, it could
be solved tomorrow.
There is a tangible narrative that exists that this problem gets solved. Then I rewatched the James Fadiman recap example. Did you see? Did we talk about on the show?
No, I don't think we did.
Fadiman did a research experiment in the late 60s where they took something like 44 people who had an unsolvable problem.
We definitely talked about this, but not in this context. Right. So I like where you're going with it.
So Fadiman gave everybody fucking massive doses of LSD and put them in a room, and they solved the problem with each other's brain power. And
this is a PhD level people. They all had unique problems that they'd been working on for months and months and couldn't solve.
And funny enough, that is actually I 2 days ago, I watched this article again the other day, yesterday. 2 days ago, I would have actually said the same thing. What I did realize is I was wrong about this. Not all of them were academics. Two of them were architects. There was a furniture designer in there.
Wow, that's funny, because I when I first heard about it, it was, look, all these PhDs were working on
there was a lot. Yeah. There was a lot. So a lot of
academia. Yeah.
The acceptance criteria for the experiment was basically like, you have to be paid to solve this problem in real life. Like, right? Like, and you have to have failed numerous demonstrable times trying to solve this problem. Meaning you have to be super pissed that you can't fucking solve this currently. Like, I mean, and they really did look, the acceptance criteria and the people that they let through that gate were legit. Like, I mean, like very, very legit. Now, here's the thing. That is a very good example from the 60s about how AI in general, at a very, very vanilla way of describing it, does in fact work. You took 40 something people, you put them in a room. They all had an individual problem, but they all had a problem that no one else in the room had any fucking idea about. And those people just took a shit ton of fucking neurotransmitter fucking euphoric, wide openers.
And kicked in the neuroplasticity.
Fucking went bonkers. Like, you know, like they just went crazy, like Shaolin problem solving. By the end of the weekend, they had solved something like 40 of the 44.
Yeah.
Like
it's quite insane.
Right. So here's the thing. 40 something really fucking smart people in a room on Herculean doses of LSD. That's basically a primitive supercomputer with AI, you know, like, and if those dodos can get together and like trip balls and fucking solve everybody's problems, which by the way, there's probably nothing I wouldn't actually give to have
be
a time machine to go back in time and be in that room. Holy fucking shit. Can you imagine how batshit awesome that thing would have been?
Although I think if you show up with a time machine, they'd be like, oh,
yeah,
I'm really fucked up right now.
Really fucked up. Yeah.
This dude's saying he's from the future.
Yeah. So what's interesting is this guy basically said, look, AI is doing exactly what AI needs to do right now.
Yeah.
That said, we don't even know what happens when we teach an AI to research like a human. Because when that happens, AI will put on a temperable governor on the speed of research, because it can do that, right? Like it can say, I could learn at the rate of a human, and that takes X.
And I'll give you an answer in 30 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Like what was that computer in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
It was at HAL, not HAL. 42. Yeah.
42.
Okay. Come back and we'll give you the question. You know what's crazy? Because we're touching on it now too, where shit, and I just lost it. I love that. I'm not even smoking tonight.
Yeah.
But and I believe we spoke about this before too, because it was kind of a nice tie into this. But I'll come back if it comes back. Let's keep moving.
I mean, so here's the thing. Let's say tomorrow, this guy's Instagram comment where he said, "Fuck you, I've got 9 months with my mom left, and I want to turn loose." And then the quantum guys piled on and they said, well, yeah. So what if
that makes sense? Yeah.
So what if we had, and here's where your brain starts to go fucking cuckoo. What if we had all of the power of an AI that had no fucking like limiters put on it whatsoever,
restrictions on it,
like right? It's like going crazy, and then we applied it on a quantum computer that could run 1 trillion instances of the exact same UI or the AI
at once,
at the same time.
Yeah,
you see that? And you see that?
It's insane.
That scene in Infinity Wars where Doctor Strange vibrates for like 30 seconds. And he comes back.
I haven't made it that deep into the Marvel universe, man.
Oh, well, so
I gotta be honest.
So he goes, my kids have been into it, and I have kids of that age. So like, I don't know that I would have gone this deep into it if it wasn't for them, but
I'm like, hey, they're all fun movies, you know.
At this point.
I'm like, I can't watch another Ant-Man.
Yeah, no, it's
that's all I'm saying. I like Paul Rudd as much as the next straight man. You know, but it's funny. He's a good dude.
Yeah, but I don't need
nothing
a
against
15th Ant-Man.
Yeah.
But Doctor Strange vibrates like crazy. Like at the climax of the movie, he's like, and Tony Stark said something along the lines of, "Where'd you go?" He goes, "I just looked at all 4 million versions of outcome of this situation, and this is the one we have to go with. It's the only out of 4 million versions. This is the only one that ends well."
And look, I remembered what I was going to talk about there. Great. And that kind of brought it back up. But basically, they fed medical research for about a decade to AI, and they said, what's going to happen in the next 10 years? Not only did the AI predict with like an 80% accuracy of everything that was coming through the pipe, it found shit that we missed.
Right. Well,
you know, like to your point, like it found things that somebody didn't go, hey, here's a weird connection.
Right.
Because that's how we find stuff, right? It's never like, you know, that eureka moment is like, you know, you're sitting in the tub and the water gets displaced. Not, I've been working on this problem for so long and I can't figure it out, you know? So
and
without that limiting
100 years, I mean, back in the day, it'd be 100 years between times that happened.
It had to be, because that's how fast information traveled.
Right. So here's the thing, right? So we've got, let's actually, that whole very long prelude was actually in service of saying, like, that article that you read about about the they fed well, you tell it. I mean,
which one are we talking about?
The doctor responses that were better than
okay. So this was in the journal of the JAMA of internal medicine, right? And it was comparing artificial physicians to artificial intelligence.
I mean, by the way, pause real quick. I fucking love this story. I'm like,
I wish I had popcorn right now. Crazy. The numbers, and I'm staring. Like, I like to look at the study, which I have up, but I'd love to have the actual, like, hey, here's what this means article that's a much easier read.
Sure.
But AI outperformed significantly in compassion, in correctness of answers, and in speed at which it returned those things, right? You know, the quality of information that was provided was significantly better. And I think at like a level of almost 78%,
Right.
you know?
Now here, some duh moments on that
Yeah.
one before we go into like some, like, I think I left brain matter on the wall behind me moments.
Yeah.
The duh moments are speed and accuracy. Well, no,
Like,
fucking
of course
shit.
of
Yeah,
course
of
they were. But like 78 more per. So chatbots were right 78% of the time. Physicians were only right 22% of the time.
And why do you think that is? It's their fucking biases.
It's their own bias. It's and it's also their limitations.
But it's not
and
that's not an indictment on people.
No, because like that's probably significant. Though physicians are not stupid, that is probably significantly better than say if you put other people in the room and ask them the same kinds of questions, right? And but chatbot having this just chatbot, we're not talking about an unhinged, untethered, unreined in system, right?
Well, the asterisk there, and I think when you talk about looking at study data, right?
Yeah.
The question you'd really want to ask there and peel back to really kind of get the essence of this study is to say, like, what kind of questions were you really asking? Like, were they fucking absolutely vanilla, like missionary on Tuesday kind of questions? Or were they like Kama Sutra level, like, you know, crazy, like, off the chart?
Well, yeah, you know, look, this wasn't, even though it appeared in JAMA, it's not the best study in the world. So what they were doing was they had an Ask Docs Reddit group, right?
Okay.
You can go and ask questions, verified doctors can respond. So those people that ask questions,
so very little context, very little,
yeah, and I think it was all over the place with the, you know, the questions, and I think there's almost 195 exchanges, right?
Okay.
So yes, of course, you might have gotten a dermatologist answering an oncology question, and these aren't my specialties, but the thing that blows my mind is chatbot was 9.8 times higher in prevalence of empathetic and very empathetic responses.
Yeah, and
physicians.
So that was the brain matter on the wall behind me comment. Let's talk about that.
How do you have a fucking non-living thing being more human than actual humans?
And so, so there's where we went back to the very beginning of the show where I said it's equal parts amazing, benign, and malicious, right?
Well, you know, and I think the thing that tipped the scale in the favor so greatly for chatbots where physicians were giving 17 to 62 word answers,
right,
when chatbot was giving you 168 to 245 words,
right, because there's no extra effort for the chatbot to spit out more.
You could have said, give me a 50-page dissertation on this problem,
and here's
it would do it as easily as easier than a physician giving you a 2-sentence answer.
And what's funny about using ChatGPT that I not only realized for my own self, but realize with other people, is that ChatGPT, I mean, right now it's essentially like a really fancy search engine, right? Like it's like, you know, you go to Google, you say like, who invented the kite? And you come up with Ben Franklin or whatever, whoever invented the fucking kite, right? Like,
it wasn't Ben Franklin.
Yeah, whoever the fuck it was, right?
Yeah.
But you get an answer. You get a Wikipedia link, probably. You get some blogs on kites, like you know,
probably get some really crappy YouTube videos.
Right. Oh, definitely get some YouTube videos, right?
Yeah.
But the thing with ChatGPT is it's like a search engine in a conversation. So you're like, all right, so who invented the kite? Okay, it's like we're gonna say Ben Franklin.
All right, that's great. That's great. But now tell me why they did it.
Well, exactly. You're like, you're like, all right. So if Ben Franklin invented the kite, why? Like, what was going on? Like, and like, then there's more of an answer. You're like, well, what's the physics of what's the aerodynamics of that kite? And then it's like, oh, and here's the formula, the physics, and the blah, blah, blah. And you end up having a conversation with this thing, like more so than anything else. And so the quality in the hands of somebody who's a good thinker to begin with. And I don't, I don't mind saying that I'll be the pompous ass to say like, look, when I get that information back, I'm infinitely more creative because I'm
with the question you're going to ask it
correct.
next.
With
Yeah.
the question I'm going to ask next. Like my brain is only thinking like I'm in an actual intellectual like tete-a-tete with a fucking mystery nothing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're playing chess with a supercomputer.
Yeah. And that's actually different than doing a Google search, right? Like
yeah, but both you and the supercomputer are on acid.
yeah, and we're both on like all the acid that's ever been made in the history of the world. Yeah, and like, you know, it just my point is that you get these supercomputers. Sorry, that's not what I meant to say. You get these AIs out there, and like none of the things that make us go slow doing anything are a thing anymore, right? Like
it's no longer a limiting factor.
It's not at all. So like when I'm looking at this now, I said, you know, there's all these, like, did you see, I forget what it was. There was an AI company that just got $1 trillion raise.
Jeez.
So here's the thing. That's not probably the last one of those, right? Like this is a moment in history that is different than previous moments in history in a lot of ways. Like, I'm not saying like, I'm not saying that it's not like, in 100 years from now, we're going to look back on this and be like, yeah, that was a thing. Like, we probably won't be as impressed by it as here. But
it'll be so integrated into our lives. Sure. Like, I mean, think back 10 years ago to your cell phone.
No, it was crazy. Yeah.
Right.
2007, my brain exploded on the wall behind me when the fucking iPhone came out. Like, I was like,
look, man, I remember going to a BlackBerry and being like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever.
Oh, I had a Trio. Dude. Yeah, shit was crazy.
It was like, look, I got a mouse in the middle. I got a little mouse wheel.
But when electricity was invented, that felt like AI to them. Like,
but you know what?
I mean?
And to the point of, is it good or is it bad? This is, I'm gonna mention Derek Waters in Drunk History here.
Right. Oh yeah.
Have you seen the Nikola Tesla Thomas Edison one?
I did not.
So John C. Reilly.
That's such a great show though. And I'm like,
it was the best episode, right? Because there's a line where John C. Reilly, as Nikola Tesla, goes, I'm over here doing science and you're being a dick or like an asshole or something. And it's just because Nikola Tesla was like, he's like, no, we need alternating current or else we got to have a fucking power plant every 10 feet. Right. So like there's a big problem with direct current, right? You need a big fucking battery.
You're right.
But Nick, and so Edison's on this campaign, like, fuck that. We're not going to let him leave my patent, we're not going to let him do this. We're not going to let Westinghouse beat us to the punch. So he's out there using alternating current to like electrocute animals to show how dangerous it is. Yeah, right. And he's like fucking killing circus elephants and stuff.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And it's like, that is fucking morally irreprehensible.
Oh, no, that's terrible.
Just to, like, and can't you see that happening with like, oh, you guys are playing God, right? Like, can't you see that like the religious people panic?
I had a weird day today. I was in my office all day and the painters showed up and they're painting all day and a bunch of, younger guys, and they got into a conversation about God. And I mean, it was tough for me to sit and listen to it because like it was just coming from a completely like uneducated position. Like, he was actually getting mad at one of the other guys for asking like quasi coherent questions. And like, it was just like, it was getting a little awkward with them even. I'm like, oh man, I don't know what's going on here. But like when the religion thing gets, where I was going with that is when religion gets brought into it.
Yeah.
And I'm not dissing on religion per se, but when religion comes into any conversation, it introduces a line of illogical thoughts that cannot usually.
That's the bias right there. I can't accept other information because this is my belief.
I told you, I was at a meeting with a guy who literally told me AI is going to fail because it doesn't take into consideration my beliefs. And I was like, why would you say that?
I love the statement facts don't care about your feelings, because it seems like the people that get most bent out of shape
right
are the ones that are not admitting to facts.
right
You know?
Well, you know what's funny, in martial arts there's a old proverb, if you will, that's like the empty barrel makes the most noise. You know,
Yeah.
And it's like kind of like, yeah, the dude sitting on a soapbox talking about God generally is the one who knows the least about anything going on.
God, there was such a good quote. I forgot what her name was who said it, but she said, "I always find it funny when people use God, and it's always taking their side."
Oh, sure.
You know, it's like, yeah.
And what's
totally.
even funnier is I heard this guy quoted. This guy quoted, you know, in the conversation, all these Bible verses, and the guy, one of the other guys was like, well, why would God, you know, like make people born into a world that's all fucked up? And he goes, there's actually answers to that in the Bible. We've known about this forever. He starts going through it. Meanwhile, I just fucking read an article like probably a month ago that they found another book of another chapter in Matthew that had been literally erased.
Well, but that's what happened. A
No,
bunch
I know,
of old dudes in a room were like, "No, we can't say that. That gives other people too much power."
Where's the whiteout, dude?
Yeah, you know, like the Lost Book of Enoch, and there's all of these things that the Council of Trent and several people throughout history. Now we're getting onto religion.
Well, no, but my point is,
people
like,
will listen to this. We're going to get so much fucking hate mail. It's going to be amazing.
Listen. This is actually all servicing the same problem, right?
The same problem.
Because, like, here's the thing: how much? Imagine. You know what? Here. Take this fucking craziness on. Let's take a little journey.
We're going to be talking about AI every fucking week, because we can't even make it through the three articles we picked
Let's try
out.
this. Let's try this on for size. The year is 800 BC. No, I'm sorry. The year is 800 AD. My bad. Right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we have the Catholic Church doesn't become anything.
Doesn't even make it.
Doesn't even fucking make it. Right? The Catholic Church wouldn't make it, because if you were, and like, listen, this is, again, I'm not like, and I said this earlier, I'm like, I'm not knocking religion. I think that religion has a purpose. But servicing God is not one of those purposes, I don't think. Right?
But, people are told that. Like, I think people genuinely believe that they are, but it's like, how are you going over to that country over there? You're telling them about your God and they got to follow you, but they've been happy all along. How is that servicing God?
The only comment I've ever left on Ben Greenfield's site was he had a fucking Catholic-ish priest, some evangelical guy. I don't think he was Catholic, but he was some Christian guy. Gets on there and tells a story about that exact same thing. Like, they went to this Viking village. They had this 1,000-year-old tree that they thought their god inhabited, and the tree was sacred. It was like they prayed to it. They had altars on it. Blah 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 blah. And these foreigners came in and they fucking burned the tree to the ground. And they said, "Where's your god now?" And they use that as justification for their God being the right God.
See,
and their gods
I think Vikings rightfully should have been like, well, we're going to murder you, and if your God stops us,
but that's my point. Great. Is like, that is the most nonsensical fucking.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
Now I'm going to bash religion.
No, but it was the most nonsensical answer, like, story to tell in service of anything whatsoever, right? Like,
and my God is a peaceful God. Fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you.
Like,
and this whole conversation,
history would say otherwise.
Well, this is the thing. This whole thing gets wrapped in sort of too many biases to even count, because for millennia we've been tied to this narrative. And like, the problem is like, let's say, and this is why I said it's 800 AD. And you know what? Actually, let's make it more. 800 Christianity was kind of rolling by then, but like.
Yeah, and it's funny because earliest Christians were like Ethiopians, and that's been completely erased too. You know, it's kind of crazy.
Let's just say that the day Jesus died, AI was invented the following day, right? Christianity never becomes a thing.
Hey, so this Jewish carpenter was nailed to a cross.
Right, yeah, right. You know,
He wasn't fully dead,
Yeah,
so
no.
he got out of a cave 3 days later, and
So do you
everyone
think-
shits themselves.
do you think that a guy who just died, because Jesus is a historically accurate thing, that dude lived, like he was a guy.
There's some. So look, there's a lot of texts on that, including a PhD candidate. But like, there's a book called Nailed that like is in defense. I mean, it's a pretty on the nose to call it Nailed, but it gives 10 arguments of the non-existence of Jesus.
Oh, interesting.
including one like habeas corpus. There's no fucking body. You know,
Right.
oh, he ascended into heaven. How convenient.
Yeah, how convenient.
You know, that's like.
Or he's Jimmy Hoffa style in the fucking.
You know, and things like, you know, the Romans knew exactly the names of everybody they crucified. They wrote it down. They were great bookkeepers.
Right.
No JC.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So, conversation for another day. But my point is,
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
that-
Now we're definitely getting hate.
no.
mail.
But my point is that religious construct, the proliferation of religion
Yeah.
as we currently enjoy it,
Yeah.
it happened because we were too uneducated as a species to do it differently. If AI existed the day after JC, swan songed, well,
Yeah.
guess what? That narrative doesn't even spin up because, like, in non-derogatory terms, religion is absolutely nonsensical in every description.
In every case, and you catch so much hell. There's so much fire and fury when that happens.
Absolutely.
Like I'll tell you, I've got a friend, and I absolutely love her, right? But I cupped my head with 2 traditional water buffalo horns. Took the photo, and it upset her
Why?
immensely because I was imitating the devil.
And see, this is
And
the
I'm
thing.
like, nowhere in the Bible does the devil have horns.
No, and we don't.
That was to kill pagan gods.
Yeah.
That was to make pagan gods look bad, so you would convert.
And we don't make progress because we're bound up by dumb shit like that.
By dumb shit like that.
Right.
Like, we're gonna bomb the shit out of each other, praying to the same fucking God.
Right. And so, like,
Sorry.
my point, no. My point with all this is that,
Now, I'm not apologizing to you because we're on the same page.
my point about
I'm
all this is,
apologizing
like,
to my damn parents that are going to
Yeah.
listen to this and be like, we thought you were an atheist communist for a long time now.
and now we have,
And now we have
confirmation.
clinical proof.
but like we actually now can look at this and say, like, hey, we've done it the way where religion and politics guide progress.
Absolutely,
we've tried
100%.
that. We've done
Systems
it
of
for-
control.
We've done that for a couple millennia. Well, here's the thing. We are now at a spot where, like, maybe that needs to change. Let's try this other thing for a little minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing scares the bejesus out of everybody. And like, going back to the book I was doing with our friend, that book is really kind of about, like, what is it about AI that scares the shit out of people? And, like, some of it is like, yeah, Skynet and, but most of it is that if you are a working professional in most professions right now,
You're done.
That's
You're
terrifying, right? If you're 22 years old and you just got out of college to be an accountant, I would be terrified, right? Because
Look, man, it's coming for everything.
no, it's coming for everything
in some way, shape, and form.
right? And then guess who else hates it? All religions, because again, when you take religion through a lens of absolute objectivity, it doesn't stand the test, right? Like, it doesn't.
It doesn't. But like, governments will have a hard time with this too.
And the next one is governments, because governments are largely inefficient, dumb.
Did we talk about the AI being fed information about how to solve, climate crisis and traffic and all this stuff? So they plugged in, hey, how do we solve this traffic? How do we get more cars off the street? How do we? They didn't even say get more cars off the street. They said high speed trains. high-speed trains is the answer, right? And we were supposed to get those by our friend Elon, who's a fucking piece of shit. But he only did that so he could sell more electric cars. We were duped.
Sure.
Meanwhile, China's got more electric, high-speed trains than anywhere else in the world across the whole goddamn country. But anyway, so they didn't like that answer. So they put other data in. And they ran it again, and it came up with high-speed trains. So the solution was don't ask that question anymore.
Yeah, the question.
Like don't fix the problem. Just pretend like it's not there.
And that's
and
the
we
thing,
do
like,
that everywhere.
We do that everywhere, and like you're not going to get away from that. And that's therein lies the problem, right? Like you're never going to get away from it until you get away with it. So like. What you got to really do, and this guy's thing was saying, like, look, if we really want to make health breakthroughs, like we can't make health breakthroughs because with our current system, because we fucking are actually having an active conversation about whether women should or should not be able to buy an abortion pill. Like,
and it's even bigger than that. Like,
no,
does everybody deserve health care?
No,
is a question.
No, but so
like on a bigger scale, you can back that out even further, man.
You absolutely could, but
do kids deserve to get shot in school? No, but we're okay with it.
Yeah.
You know, and look, that's not a gun control statement. That is we're fucking stupid.
No, but there's so many things where that is the case, and like. If you want to not solve a problem, you give it to a government, right? And if you want to solve a problem, you give it to somebody.
We seem to be talking about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
right?
Quite
but if
often,
you want to solve a problem, open it up to people that can make money off of it, and you'll start solving problems, right? And so I think
for a price,
what scares the shit out of people right now is that somebody right now, as we are having this conversation, is creating an AI that cures cancer. And that means all the trillions of dollars that are earned every year
into research,
and
selling ribbons,
and fucking all that literally evaporates when it's not a thing. That is impactful, and people lose power. People who lose power get panicky and they make dumb decisions. And so like our biggest rate limiter for health has been the bureaucracy of all this shit.
Yeah.
If you have an AI going out there and being like, guess what the answer is? 38 drops of vitamin D, 52 drops of vitamin B, an aspirin, and 3 drops of honey. And it's
going to come back like that specific once the data is there.
Right.
That's like Stephen Kotler and Peter Diamandis wrote that book, Abundance, right? And I read it at a really good time, but like, they were wrong because they were talking about the lab on the chip and that woman fleeced everybody. But they were basically saying like we're faced with all of these challenges and our fucking primitive brains only hear everything is on fire, right? We need 10 pieces of information for every positive pieces of information for every one negative.
Sure.
Because we absorb 9 negative pieces of information for every one positive. But they were like, look, I know this sounds bad. I know there's global warming. Here's how technology is going to save us. They weren't even fucking looking at AI at the time.
Sure.
But their key components were we advance through democratization, demonetization, and distribution, right? And they might have had a different one that might not be distribution. But democratization is it available to everyone?
Sure.
Right? That was their, and demonetization is like real simple. Every time you move a decimal place to the right, you exclude a group of people.
Sure.
Every time you move it to the left exponentially, you make more accessible for more people. So there was a guy that made a test kit, right? You needed a centrifuge and you needed a drop of blood for malaria, right? And we're talking about where's malaria? Africa.
Sure.
How much money is there? Well, there's a ton of resources there, but we've raped them for that. But that's now I'm getting leftist again. But anyway, what he ended up doing is making a centrifuge on a little circular card that has 2 pieces of string.
Oh.
And then he made a microscope that looks like a little drop of water on, and for less than $1, you can have a test kit to collect blood, put it into a little pipette, spin it, and then look at where, sickle cell. I'm sorry, for sickle cells under the microscope.
That's amazing.
And it was less than $1 because that's how you democratize things, right? Super amazing. Now, to our point, what if those problems were fed into Chat GPT right now. What is the cheapest way we can diagnose this?
Oh yeah. No, it's
everything. Diagnosis, treatment, all of it across the board.
And it's funny because I think the way I look at this is we're going to have like a period in the next couple of years where we're answering a lot of questions that like that pent up. But what I find the most exciting about this is like, even without AI in the last 10 years, the health stuff, the biohacking stuff has been like absolutely crazy. I mean, we just, we didn't get a chance to talk about it today, but we'll do, I think we should do a whole cold therapy, one again, because like that's all over the news right now. And like, that's got some great health benefits. And like, we're seeing that now. What happens if like AI is like, hey, you could do a 65-degree cool bath.
Here's your protocol, man.
If you did X, Y, and Z and, like blah, blah, blah. And you'll quintuple the output, right? And you're like, and that sounds fantastical, but like the chances of that being real are pretty high. Because,
pretty good.
Like we just can't put those pieces together. So like, I think that we are about to get very creative because the tactical limitations of our development are going to
they're coming off.
They are going to soon be gone. And I think we're going to enter into like a super crazy creative, renaissance, if you will, because we have nothing else to worry about.
Well, but isn't that what we should be doing? I see this meme every once in a while where there's like a monkey talking to a human, right? And it's they're at a zoo and it's a photo and they go like, wait a minute, you actually have to pay to eat and live somewhere? Like, who's the primitive?
Yeah, right.
Who decided that system? Like, I'm out here in the woods. Yeah, I might get eaten by something, but I don't got rent.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No rent. Ain't no stress.
No rent.
No Twitter out here.
Right in that tree for me. No
Twitter out here to worry about. No Facebook.
It's kind of crazy, and really, AI could be that saving thing that fixes it all, because now we're not motivated by, look, I need to make the profit on it, or, hey, I want, I think as humans, we're probably still always going to struggle for control over other people, which is pretty shitty, but
that's never going to change.
But hopefully we find a more ethical system,
we could talk about this forever, but we're getting there.
We're getting long in the tooth.
Yeah, we gotta wrap it up. But in general, listen, I gotta say, this is probably unfortunately not going to be, or not unfortunately, but this is probably not going to be the last time we talked about it, this because
part 1 of 18.
Yeah, I mean, we'll try not to do it all the time, but like, I mean, look, the fact that version 1.0 was more empathetic than another human being does not make one think that this is not a fucking crazy system, right? Like,
and
you would
and
expect V10 to be like, yes, go to the left, like everything, like very robotic.
This is not the future from any 1950s sitcom.
No, this is
this is not My Favorite Martian. This is not was that Lost in Space?
This is like Ex Machina. Like, you ever see that movie?
Yes.
Like that. The girl robots in there were obviously human actors, but like they were human actors because the robots wore that lifelike in that thing. And like, that's that kind of future, right? Like the AI is kind of like that situation. And then somebody's absolutely going to make a sex doll that's like a real person. And like, that'll be that.
Look, man, if it keeps people from overbreeding.
Right. No, I mean, pretty soon everyone's going to have like, their own personal sex doll where you have like a marriage and then you have like a sex doll marriage, and like
that's going to be so fucking weird, man.
Dude, it's going to be weird because you're going to literally
it's going to be so
plug
weird.
them into a USB port on the side or like wirelessly charge through their ass.
Here's my wife, and here's the thing I fuck on the 10 times a day. It's that's a little weird.
Yeah, dude, totally. No, that would be crazy. I mean, it's the fucking craziest thing in the world, but like none of this shit is off limits anymore, right? So
no, absolutely not.
Anyway, what are you getting into these days?
So, man, I'm coming down off of a pretty major high of a week.
Yeah, totally.
And we were talking about this before, too. I shouldn't say who, but let's say a major figure in Maryland I got to meet several big people with some connections through my Goldman Sachs small business program, which shout out to them if you own a small business and are looking to step up your business game. This is an MBA on speed, a 3-month course. But anyway, I had this opportunity, and this guy shook my hand, and he said, "I'm glad you're at this round table. 6 people told me about your place." And this is somebody that should have virtually no knowledge of me. And like that I got to come off of for a little bit.
No, it's
we
great.
were also on the news today too. So that was kind of exciting for Cold Plunge. Go figure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, listen, I told you we got to do a
we can do it. I'm probably going to get quoted in 3 or 4 articles too for that.
Yeah, it seems to be all the rage, man. A buddy of mine just built his own thing, and he loves it. But like everybody's like into it, and I'm like, I've said it before, I'm just too much of a wimp to really do it. But I mean, it's man, on the list.
$99. You can get the inflatable Japanese bathtub and just fill it with cold water.
Yeah, and I think that's how I'd have to go about it in the first place, because like I'm not going to be the dude who's doing that on a daily basis. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it'll remain to be seen whether I made a good business decision or a bad one, because like I bought an expensive filtered machine for my office, and maybe people will just go, nah, I'll just do the cold shower.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but like, honestly, like when I do that, when I have done cold plunge in the past, like you feel remarkably better. I mean, I'm not like
you do. And it's funny because, the like the news always likes to pit it as something. Oh, this is real. And this person has this opinion and that person has this opinion. And the piece made me look like, well, one, I don't want to bash the news for having me on, but it was so weird where they're like, yeah, so the owner, and I'm like, how come you called her by her title? And you just called me like, why didn't you mention my doctorate? Why did you mention my training?
Right.
And, and then at the end, they let them have the last word. And they're like, well, there's no research to any of these claims. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. I was on PubMed before this article, before this piece. I'm pretty sure there is.
Yeah. And like, it's funny about that because you're kind of like, you as a professional should really, not you, the other person, should be really interested in actually, like, if you're going to be on it about there, like, this is something that people are like going out and doing largely based on your opinion of it. Like, so like maybe you should not be so cavalier about what you're saying
about panning something or even promoting it. Right. I mean, when we see good stuff coming out, they're like, look, here's some research. We don't know if this is complete. We don't know if, even studies will admit when they're like, look, this research looks promising, but more needs to be done.
Well, no, of course. And cold plunge is one of those things that's got a billion cofactors involved in it, right? Like, so you can't really say what what is like the absolute truth, because like there's so many things that are going to happen along the way that'll inform it. So like, if you have good results to start out, then like you got to just do some more. Usually, I mean, the rightest answer is that usually, right? Like, great, we got past step 1 and it looked great, so we're going to go to step 2.
Like, well, the other thing that cracked me up is, and I'm not trying to knock a specific profession, but I've read a lot of studies out of that profession, and I'm like, these are no better or worse than anything in my field. In fact, my field tends to outperform theirs. Well, and it's like, but we're the weirdos. We're the ones doing that weird. And once again, that's my own personal axe to grind. Anyway,
no, but like,
what are you getting?
But like, so what I'm getting into lately is honestly this. I mean, I am like way down
I can tell, man. Yeah, I can tell. I'm liking talking to you about this.
I've gotten
so
way
passionate.
down the rabbit hole on this lately, and like for good reason. I mean, look, I remember going to college and I was on the tour, and they said, oh, and every dorm room's got an Ethernet jack. And my parents were like, what the fuck is an Ethernet jack? And I was like, what the fuck is an Ethernet jack?
Yeah.
And then I got to college, and I had to get a computer because I was in an art school, and I got an Apple loan, my first loan ever. Like I got it my freshman year of college, and I bought a computer, and it had this funky rectangular shaped plug in the back. And they're like, oh, that's your Ethernet plug. And I said, oh, cool. So I had an Ethernet cable. It was still wound up in the box. And I remember plugging it in. And the school gave us like a 8.5 by 11 printout of like what to do with setting up your subnet mask and your IP address and blah, 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 all this stuff. And I was like, what the fuck is any of this? I might as well have been looking at ancient Greek.
Yeah.
Like I was like, fucking what? But here's the thing. Once I went through that topic and I got to the end of the rabbit hole and I was on the web, my brain instantly exploded.
Yeah.
I was like,
how could it not? How could it not?
Well, it didn't for most people. Actually, I was not like,
but like, I mean, I came from home because we're about the same age. When I got to college and they're like, we have DSL.
Right. You're like,
I was like, wait, well, hold on. No,
yeah.
You know, like no modem sounds.
We had a T1 for the whole campus.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, yeah, we had,
it was only 2 hours to download an MP3.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I told my kids, my kids are like watching South Park now. And Cooper asked me the other day, he's like, did you watch South Park? I said, yeah. You know how I watched it? On an ICQ, with an ICQ account. I got the first episode of South Park streamed out on
that was Jesus versus Santa.
Correct,
or something,
yeah,
right? The pilot. That was probably the best one they've ever made.
Fucking hilarious. And
I do not care. I don't watch the new stuff. I'm like, oh, they're just trying to be controversial now.
And so like we watched the first like 12, 13 episodes. They all were on the internet. And like when that was happening, I gotta like double down on the fact that my brain was going nuts. I'm like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like, and I remember going home to my parents going, this internet thing is going to change the world. And I'm not saying I was Nostradamus because many people my age in that time and place were saying the same
we saw a thing.
We all saw the same thing, right? Like I was not unique in this, but.
Well, even emails were like, whoa, I can bypass.
Sure. I had a Vax account. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world because Vax had a whole thing you could hack and you could actually go into Vax and it was like a DOS prompt looking thing. And you could back into weird directories. And like, we actually found out a way when I was in college, we found out a way that you can actually through the network, we put a program on a back door on each of the library computers and we could disable keys as people were typing.
Oh my God. So they probably fucking hated that.
So what was funny is when you put the program on, you could see it in your dorm room about like, what they were typing and you just see them. You're like, I'm going to disable the E key. And like they're typing pretty fast and it's like backspace, backspace, backspace. And then like, no E, you just see a pause and we're sitting there, cracking up. But like, AI instantaneously made me go back in time. You ever see that movie, the animated movie Ratatouille?
Yeah, of course I did.
You know when the food critic at the end tastes the ratatouille and all of a sudden in his brain he goes zipping back.
Yeah, and he gets color in his face. Yeah,
right. He zips back to when he was a kid. When I've read my first ChatGPT article, I did that moment. I zoomed back to 1998 when I was in college, and I was like, the world ain't ever going to be the same. Like, and it was like instantaneous, like,
yeah.
And now I'm sitting here going like, this is so exciting that like, I don't actually want to do anything but this. Like
I honestly feel like it's going to be bigger than that.
Oh no, it's going to be. But here's the thing. There is a fraction of single digit percent of the overall population that has any capacity to really move the needle on this right now until some kid in a socioeconomically depressed area gets enough internet connection to run enough ChatGPT things like experiments to come up with something that changes the world. And that kid's going to be a trillionaire. And like that story's coming, right? Like we're going to see that story soon. Like because like the chances of that not being real are not good. Like, like when you have no barriers, I don't have to go to college. I don't have to pay for anything. I just need a free ChatGPT account. or maybe a $20 a month one so I can get access to 4 and priority server placement. That could be my college right there.
The brain exploding information coming in.
$20 a month could unlock my consciousness if I'm that guy or gal.
If you're that guy. Yeah, and I think that is the amazing thing, right? Because then, well, I don't have to pay college. So college is probably going to be shitting themselves, you know.
Well,
but anyway, man, we're going on and on. We can talk about this for 3 hours.
That's all I'm doing.
Let's tap out.
I'm balls deep in this because it is definitely
you're all in on the AI.
Well, because philosophically, it's where we got to go next. And like, I think there's a lot of people that got really excited about ChatGPT as a way to cheat on a term paper, and it went through the news cycle. And, you know,
most of those people are still like riding that wave and they're stuck there. Yeah.
Yeah. And like most people are. And that's not an indictment on them. It's just like an observation saying, hey, look, you know, the people that are going to move the needle are the ones who like had that moment that they're like, yep, this is the next thing. We got to do it. And just did it, right? Like most people went back to work as a CPA or as a contract lawyer. And I'm like, you should be running to a new thing right now because like AI is going to do this better than you. Like,
or you want to be the one that controls the AI that does.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Why don't you go out there and start making an AI for what you do so that it's ready to go and you just be the person? And somebody's doing that right now. Like, you know,
1,000%. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, listen, you know, as always, it's been fun.
We'll probably be talking about this in a week.
Exactly. All right, man. Be good.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.